So this is addressed to an atheist who wants to understand how a Christian thinks and may not be trying to be convinced that the Christian's right, but is just curious to why they believe what they believe and the differences. And I want to start out with belief, with believing. I recently saw a video by Living Waters called The Crazy Bible, and some atheists on there were trying to demonstrate that they don't believe anything. It's not, atheism is not a belief. They don't even want that word to come up. You know, if that is the most ludicrous, twisted thinking, maybe not ludicrous, maybe it's not a good word, but it's a ploy. It doesn't make any sense, and no one believes that. Everybody has to believe things. First of all, we have no idea the fully concept of what exists and what's out there in the universe. There's theories, there's multiple universes. Someone has to believe that because they've never seen that. They may see evidence for it, but it doesn't mean that it actually exists. It wasn't that long ago in the world's history that men didn't have a clue about radio waves or microwaves or such. And the thought of being able to transfer information through air would have been to them like that illogical, because they simply didn't know about radio waves. And so there are so many things in the world we don't know. We can't. We just don't know if we know or not, because it's just impossible for us to know everything. And to say that we do, then it is just tell everybody who wants to make progress in science and maybe who wants to see if they can make people become invisible or whatever, that seems to be impossible. Tell them not to stop, because it's not possible, and everything's not possible, so just stop, because everything we know is known. Everything that is known, could be known, is known. And that's, no one believes that. See, believe again. If no one believes that, then we just have to base things on belief, and that is the point kind of belief. Even in this world of things we deal with every day, there are things we have to believe. You get married to someone and they say they love you. You believe that, but you have no way of empirically or scientifically measuring that to determine if that's absolutely true. You just simply trust. You simply trust people with what they say, though you can't prove it, but you have faith in them or believe in them. And that's just the way the world works in every scope of it. You can't get away from it. So for atheists to go as if they're pious, as if they're smarter than Christians who believe, have faith, they're just kidding themselves. And Christians are honest that, yeah, I don't know everything. Christians don't know everything, but we do believe. Now that brings me to the next part of belief. Belief is not a shot in the dark. It's not stupid faith. It is judging things by the information you have, by looking at things and coming to a conclusion. Though you can't be guaranteed, you still come to that conclusion. And we do this all the time. You get in a car, there's no guarantee you'll arrive at your destination safely, or in an airplane, but you do it anyway. There's no telling how your marriage will go, but you get married. Or there's no telling if you buy a stock that it'll actually make you money, or if you listen to an investor that he's going to tell you the right thing to do, because the future's not measurable. So you still have to have faith or trust in people or things. And that's where a Christian goes. He says, well, I have to believe, I have faith. What seems to be the difference between a Christian and an atheist, or someone who seems to be wants to say, I'm scientific, I give this illustration in my mind. It makes sense. And I hope if you listen and think about it, it would make sense to you. I know if you just, oh, that's stupid, and dismiss it, it's not going to. But listen, you have two boys. They sit down at the breakfast table, and a meal is placed before them. The one boy is scientific-minded, and he looks at everything there. He thinks about the egg, and it was laid by a chicken, and and the egg's full of protein and the difference between the yolk, and he examines the food and he tastes it and he says, man, this is good food. But that's the limited, his understanding of the world around him is limited to that. The other boy, who's more open to things outside of what can be basically touched and felt and measured, he sees all that, he understands all that, and he realizes that there's a wonderful meal there. But he goes beyond that, and he can realize that there was someone who, with love, which cannot be measured, made that meal. So the atheist difference between a Christian and atheist is that a Christian can believe beyond what he can physically touch or feel. And that opens him up, it makes him a more open-minded person than a person who says, if I can't measure it, if I can't touch it, then it doesn't exist. And so, this limits really an atheist in that sense, because he doesn't want to grasp. And in reality, atheists are open-minded except for when it comes to the concept of a God. And that's where, the biggest difference is. And that, I'm going to finish up with this real quick, but that's the difference between the Christian and the atheist is basically, from what I've talked to many atheists, read their stuff, listened to YouTube videos and everything, it seems to boil down to just this inward desire not to want to believe in God, because then there's some moral agent that they have to be accountable to. But as far as belief goes, I've listened to all the atheist ideas about our existence, and none of them seem to add up in a real world way. I mean, no one has ever observed something just spontaneously being generated out of simply nothing. And when we say nothing, we mean nothing of an organized character, like a rock. If you saw life come from a rock, you would say it came from nothing, because a rock really doesn't have what it takes to give life. There's much more than a rock can provide. So when we say life came from nothing, we're not maybe talking about exactly the existence of nothing, even though some evolutionists believe everything came from nothing. Still, the fact is we've never just seen something spontaneously generate. I asked an atheist one time, I said, well, if we set a computer, the most advanced computer in the world, we set it on the table, and we came back 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, would that computer be any better? And he says, of course not. That's not what we're talking about. And by saying that, he actually condemned his own ideas, because what he's saying is advances, the most advanced technology that we can have can't even do what life does, and we have no idea where life came from. So, and an atheist like to look at life and say, oh, it could do all this, but Christians say, well, yeah, life is amazing because it's an amazing design. And that's the other thing. In our life, as we go through life, we always can tell the difference between things that are designed and things that aren't. I mean, I've walked through the woods and I've seen where the trees have been blown down and knocked down. They're laying all over the place. Then I've come across other logs that are laying there, and I can tell that those were cut and laid out by man. Even an old cabin that maybe has dilapidated, fallen down, the roof caved in, and but you can see those boards were actually cut and things were made a long time ago. But our minds can identify something created. And then we also know in our life that nothing in this world becomes better when left alone. Nothing becomes better. And I know there's all these arguments that's not true left alone, but it is. It is in a closed system. You could provide sources like a plant. You can put a plant out. You can do whatever you want and provide certain nutrients, the things it needs. You can provide a car with energy, never stop energy, but the car is not going to get better still. And so when a Christian sees all these things, he's not putting his faith in just blind faith. He comes to these conclusions that all these things add up to there is some designer, there is something out there, and I'm going to trust in that designer. The atheist just refuses to see that, and that's the difference. So, and the conclusion to this is that you have to believe in things. The world is made up, and we live our lives by believing and having faith in people, in having faith in the future, in having faith in the ability to do things. And so we all have faith, and you cannot dismiss and say, I just don't have faith, I just don't believe. You can't get even around saying that. Second of all, the difference between an atheist and a Christian is opened. He's open to things he cannot see, but he's also determining those things by the things he can see. And that's the difference. He's not just limiting his ability to what he sees, he's also going beyond that. And so that will, and then the next one I'll share with you why then a Christian can believe all these seemingly fairy tales that are in the Bible, and we'll get into that next. But thanks for listening to this, and I hope it's been thought-provoking, though I'm not sure it would convince anybody of anything. But maybe you thought of something a little different because of watching it. But subscribe to this and hit like if you like it. Thanks.